Crosswind has already pulled in over 80,000 people like me who absolutely love pirate games. In fact, I have 800 hours in Atlas, which was a pirate game that was fantastic and then lost a little bit of its luster as it stopped getting developed. Enter Crosswind. According to its Steam page, Crosswind is a survival MMO set in the age of piracy. Explore procedurally open worlds, gather, build, and craft. Overcome challenging bosses in Souls-like combat, sail your ship, fight on land and sea, play solo or with friends. Live your swashbuckling adventure in PvE or rise to power in optional PvP. And this is being both developed and published by, appropriately enough, Crosswind Crew. Digging into Crosswind got me thinking a little bit about my old Atlas days and how the two games might compare. What's the same? What's different? Here are my thoughts. Each game has its own inspiration. Like Atlas was largely based off of Ark. Of course, we all know that you could still access the Ark menu in early versions of Atlas that pretty much showed us that that whole game was built around Ark's frame. Whereas Crosswind looks like it is going to be a mix of Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and Valheim. And that's not just my opinion, that is what one of the team members has said, and what the developer blog does say as well. So the gameplay loop is going to be like a Valheim loop, which is a direct almost quote from one of the developers. And then also the naval combat was inspired by Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Valheim's progression was based around taking out various levels of bosses so that you can unlock the next tier of gear to then take on the next level of bosses and unlock more materials. And then of course Assassin's Creed Black Flag combat is more where a ship's captain is up at the helm directing the cannons what to do and also directing the crew what to do. So right off the bat it's recognizable that the open world sandbox progression of Atlas is not going to be what we're going to see in Crosswind. Things are going to be a little bit more on the rails in Crosswind. And Atlas really was an open book progression-wise, which I really liked. The whole world was open to you regardless which ship, dinghy, or rowboat you chose to float. All biomes were open, assuming the map you were playing had them. It was full freedom to explore, even on a creaky little raft if that was what you wanted to do that day. Here's an actual quote from one of the Crosswinds team that goes over Atlas specifically and Crosswind, what's similar and what's different. Bambino starts by saying, "You're definitely not alone in drawing that comparison, and we totally get it. Crosswind does share some surface level similarities with Atlas. Open world sailing, ship-based gameplay, base building, and even some sandbox elements. But once you get a bit deeper, the differences start to show. Crosswind leans much more into cooperative PvE and story-driven exploration. At its heart, it's about building a personal world you can share with friends, progressing through handcrafted content, and setting off on optional shared adventures beyond your base. The emphasis is on immersive survival gameplay mixed with narrative elements, rather than sandbox chaos. As for PvP, it's there, but completely optional. No forced ganking and certainly no waking up to find your base looted while you are offline. We want PvP to be meaningful, opt-in, and rewarding, not punishing. You'll engage in it when you're ready, not because you were caught off guard." I really like that response, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna miss the Atlas sandbox chaos. Like, when I played on a server with a bunch of my friends, there was this whale that spawned between two of our islands, and the gameplay made itself because every single time we would go to visit each other, we would have to think, oh, is the whale respawning? Do we have to worry about the whale? Is it down below? Is it going to come up and crash our raft or whatever we were sailing at the time? So in that way, kind of the glory of Atlas was that it was a sandbox and that unexpected things happened unless you were one of those people who meticulously kept track of whale spawn timers. But it seems like Crosswind, as I said earlier, is going to be way more on the rails, which is okay. It's going to be its own unique take on a pirate survival MMO. So rather than a rampaging whale in the chaos sandbox that Atlas was, in the words of a Crosswinds developer, they are going to plan to create multiple story arcs, each built on our core gameplay mechanics, but offering a fresh experience with new worlds and narratives. So even if you're a strict PvE enjoyer, multiplayer, you'll always have a reason to keep playing. So we won't always have the unknown of a sandbox to keep us busy, but it does look like that there are a lot of story arcs in the works to keep PvE players hooked. My rampaging whale anecdote from Atlas brings me to the next point, or the next thing we can compare between these two games, which is the way that bases are set up, as well as how those bases will allow you to interact with the world. Atlas's big pull for me was building a piratey base on an island I liked, while friends built their own. We could set sail and visit each other. It felt very persistent. Just like I mentioned in that whale story, it was a very persistent thing having to deal with that whale every day. Our bases became a trophy of our survival and exploration progress. We could take things we found out in the world and put them in our base and then show it off to everyone else. And it was always really cool to watch friends build and add on to their own pirate lair over time, and then, as I said, go and visit them and see how they're doing, kind of like keeping up with the Pirate Jones kind of thing. Joneses. I don't think Crosswind will offer exactly the same feeling of persistence based on this quote. Each player has their own world where the main game story unfolds. It's a big archipelago with a dozen islands, a combination of biomes, resources, enemies, and secrets. The bulk of it is procedurally generated, with some of the key points of interest handcrafted, which means your world won't be the same as your friends. You have full control over your world in regards to who can visit it. You can keep it private, or you can invite your buddies to explore, craft, build, fight with you. We want you to experience the core game story the way you want, solo or with friends. That part of Crosswind is a play at your own pace and enjoy the adventure type. The big comparison there for me is that Crosswind will not be that same persistent server type of feel that Atlas has. The map will not be shared by everybody in the same way that it was in Atlas. So everyone's home realms will be different, and I'm assuming you will have to join a friend's home realm through a lobby rather than actually getting in your ship and sailing to your friend's island. Beyond resource collecting, that's a part of most survival games, I was able to find one little tidbit about food in Crosswind. Benjamin Bridgman over on Discord, who is a part of the Crosswinds team, said that food is like Valheim, I guess. You don't die without it, but you have a fraction of HP pool when hungry. So clearly you are not going to need to keep up with vitamins in the same way that you did with Atlas, and it may not be so tedious to keep up with food in Crosswind. We'll have to wait and see on that one though. All of this brings me to my final comparison that stood out between the two games, which is the combat. Atlas players know how janky the combat could be, although once you got a foothold and figured things out, it actually had quite a high skill ceiling. On Crosswind, it looks like we're going to get a much more polished experience. On the dev blog, they showcased a boss fight, which had really polished combat animations for an alpha stage, and also the boss looked really cool, and it had so much detail, and it looked much more like a choreographed dance rather than someone just standing around flailing their arms crazily as you would in an Atlas fight and kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Here's a bit more about naval combat and crews. This is from Bambino on Discord. The boarding scene in the trailer does indeed show a lot of characters, and yes, most of them are NPCs. During such encounters, there can be a mix of real players and AI-controlled crewmates, depending on the situation. As for ship crews, we absolutely want players to manage their own crew, recruiting them throughout the game world, taking care of them, and ideally progressing them over time. Our goal is to make crew management a meaningful part of ship long-term progression too. That's really good to hear. I actually enjoyed building up my NPC crew army over on Atlas, so I am really happy to see that there's going to be a similar kind of system in Crosswind. This one is going to be for my Atlas PvPers. This is a quote from Discord from Benjamin Bridgman, who is on the Crosswinds team. We discussed base raiding in general since it's one of survival genre's staples, but we don't really like how it takes a lot of creativity out of buildings. You just keep building defendable cubicles instead of beautiful villages, so while all the raiding ideas are still on the table, we are not sure about exact implementation yet. And then over on the developer blog, it mentions PvP and says that there will be other zones, for example, a naval PvP zone, and other activities that will be added later as development goes. We see PvP as an additional way to enjoy the game. It will be optional, and it will take time to be properly implemented. That's one of the concepts we strongly believe in. PvP should be there, it should be fun, but it should not be forced upon anyone. That's really all I have for you as far as PvP goes right now. Will Crosswinds have tames? I really couldn't find too much about this, considering if we're comparing Atlas and Crosswind, we kind of have to think about tames. Tames were a huge part of Atlas. All I could find is this quote about pets. Bambino says, "Last playtest, there indeed was a possibility to tame some pets. If I'm not mistaken, it'll be present again on the upcoming playtest too." So it's not a ton of detail, but it does mention that taming pets is an option. I don't know what the functionality of those pets are, if they function anything like Atlas tames, or if they're just fun pets to kind of have around, like a parrot or a cat or something like that. We are going to have to wait and see. I don't think Crosswind is going to be the next Atlas, but I do think it's going to be a solid entry into the pirate genre. Kind of like how Atlas balanced out what Sea of Thieves didn't have, which was creative building and customization. Sea of Thieves is great for so many things, but it doesn't really offer you the chance to build up your own base brick by brick and piece by piece. That was Atlas's forte. And now I think Crosswind will come along and have its own set of strong points. So while I'm very sad to see Atlas kind of fade out of my gaming radar, I am extremely excited to see Crosswinds make its way in. I will continue to watch the developer Discord as well as all of the Steam discussions that are going on so that I can bring out some more new information as it comes along. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section and I will try and answer them or get some answers for you. My question now for you all is, how are you feeling about having a new piratey game coming up for us? Is it going to pull you away from Atlas? Alright, that is it for me today, you guys. As always, I hope you are enjoying your games, and I will see you all in the next video.